All right, so they can hear me on the lines now? Okay, sweet. Let's do it. Well, welcome everyone. My name is ObjectivelyDan, and this is our unnamed as of yet street epistemology call-in show pilot. The purpose of this show is to kind of talk about street epistemology as well as just techniques in general of talking to people about what they believe and why they believe it. What are some good methods for that? What's worked for some people, what hasn't worked for people. We might delve into some philosophy here and there, but mostly I'd like to be taking in calls from people who have a claim about something that they want to test with me, and also calls about people who have questions of what street epistemology is, or questions about how to talk to people better about their beliefs. And this is our first episode, so it's not live right now. Everybody that's on calls right now should know that. We are just testing some things out. We might upload this for YouTube later, but for now we're just gonna keep things real casual and see where it goes. Yo, my mic sounds nice. Check one.
Oh my God! Well, that I was not privy to that introduction. They told me that they wanted to do something special for the 100th episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, ObjectivelyDan. This is, of course, Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central, where we're talking about what people believe and why. And yes, it's been 100 episodes since I started that thing. Obviously, you can see my haircut was a sight to behold. I was definitely wearing a shirt that was, I think, a little too small for me, but I had to wear something street epistemology related. And I have a special guest for my 100th episode. It's actually Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is here on the line with us. What's going on, Bernie?
Yeah, I don't do a good Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I have the mittens. That's what matters.
So we're actually here with Bridget Bradshaw. Bridget is a formal paranormal investigator who actually called into the show a couple weeks back. If you guys remember that phone conversation, I was so enthralled that we wanted to ask to talk to you again on the show. But yeah, a quick shout out again to the crew and everybody that dug around to make that happen. That intro that makes me happy. I can't believe it's been 100 episodes. I've and I only hosted 99 of them, so I missed one in there. But yeah, 100 episodes is crazy. I did the math earlier. You know, an hour and a half on average on each episode. That's like about 150 hours of me talking, which is about like 6 days worth of content. So that's 6 days of my life I've spent just in front of the microphone, just saying absolute garbage nonsense, and you guys just been calling it and listening. So thank you guys for doing that. It's what a wild ride. But yes, we're here for the 100th episode, and we're going to talk about ghosts today, people. We got some special audio visual content as well. We got some EVPs we're going to be listening to. We got some ghost footage, but we're all going to be doing that. This was all provided by Bridget, who, as I mentioned before, was a formal paranormal investigator, is now not a believer in the paranormal anymore. And yeah, Bridget, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us, like, how did you get involved in that world, and why aren't you in that world anymore? How'd you end up here?
It's such a long story. Let's see how short I can make it.
Yeah.
I guess it was like 2010. I just, kids were old enough to be on their own for a little bit. So I decided, hey, I'm going to join this group. I'd seen an advertisement somewhere, and I went in. I got interviewed, had to take a test, and 3 months of training. It was crazy, but ended up doing it for like 4 years or so. Actually more than 4 years, but slowly over time, and looking back, I can see it even more now. The little things that I would pick up that I was like, yeah, that doesn't quite fit. And there were little things along the way. And eventually I was just like, yeah, I really don't have any reason to believe any of it's true. And a few months later, I was an atheist. I had been, but I figured it out. So, yeah. And now several years later, I'm talking to you, Dan.
Yeah, yeah. And so, for those of you who missed it, Bridget actually called in, like I said, a couple weeks ago on a show. I believe it was in December, and we ended up talking to you for like 20 minutes. I was just so
Yeah, it
enthralled by
was
some
a
of the
while.
stories, and I got a message from Greg, our producer, saying, like, "Hey, keep her on the line so we can talk to her again." I was like, "Yeah, we need to do that." And we thought we'd get you on the show because you had some recordings that you wanted to share. You actually posted some of your EVP stuff on the Truth Wanted Facebook group. So
Yep.
that's just another reason to join the Facebook group as well, guys. If you are interested in doing that, please check that out where we have some of that posted there. But we're going to be looking at some stuff today that you provided, and we're going to kind of give our commentary on exactly what you thought you were seeing versus kind of what we're seeing now. And we have quite a bit of content, so I want to dive right into it if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Cool. So let's start with we got some images that we want to look at first. And so what we're seeing right now for the audio listeners at home, we're looking at what seems to be a living room. We got like a brick wall in the back, a ceiling fan on the top, and there's a mirror on the side. Now, Bridget, what are we supposed to be seeing that's paranormal in this?
Well, if you zoom in a little bit, you can see, hey, that was pretty cool. You can see now you have to look in the mirror side, and up by the ceiling fan, there's a small little thing, and I think it's a snake.
Yeah, it looks like a worm creature, like a snake thing.
Eel.
An eel. Yeah, could be an eel. It's probably an eel.
Could be a snake.
Knowing
eel.
Truth Wanted's history with eels, it's probably an eel.
And that's why I included this piece of evidence. I thought it might be.
Yeah, it's relevant to the cosmology of Truth Wanted.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I think if putting our skeptic glasses on, what would you say that picture is now? Probably just
was a piece of dust.
Just a piece of dust. Okay, yeah, kind of looks like maybe a reflection of the light or something in a weird way.
Yeah, it was a flash caught a piece of dust in the mirror or something. Yeah, something along those lines.
But at the time when you took this picture, did you think this was good evidence of a ghost, or what?
I was curious about it. I was like, what is that? And I tried to figure it out, and that was one of the things that I never said it was paranormal. I don't know that anybody else ever did either with that particular one. But I kind of kept it because, it's kind of cool and I wasn't sure. You know?
Yeah. By the way, I realized I didn't say out loud exactly what the Bernie Sanders joke was for earlier. For those who are listening, you had on the mask and the mittens on for the Bernie Sanders memes going around. We put that together.
It fits.
Yeah, it was really great. Sorry, I didn't explain that for folks listening at home that aren't watching, but yeah, it was a pretty funny sight to see. But anyway, yeah, let's continue with some other proofs that you got for some ghosts here. So we have another image. We're looking at a purple haze here. Yeah. What are we seeing?
So this is purple because it's using an IR illuminator, and the camera is designed. It has the IR filter taken out of it so that you can see in IR light. It was actually dark when we took this picture.
So what is IR light for people who aren't familiar?
It's infrared. It's just a different spectrum of light that we can't see. But if the camera, you can take that filter out of a regular camera, and so that the camera can see it, so you can photograph it or video. There will be another one. The video is actually IR also.
Gotcha.
But it was supposed to be a ectoplasm or a mist or some kind of, I don't remember exactly what it was. And I pointed out that the bright light in the middle there is just a reflection of the flash or the IR illuminator. Right. And you can see that there's a streak. Right. So it's camera blur. I mean, it's just motion blur. The camera moved, not the wall. And they said, well, they said that wasn't possible because the background is clear.
Yeah, so they being the group that you were a part of.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah. So you took this picture and you were kind of looking at it with them, and you're like, oh, this probably isn't anything, actually. And they were the ones that were like, oh, no, this is something.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when they were saying, oh, no, that's some kind of mist. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I actually sat in my living room with my camera, my IR light, and I'm taking pictures and moving the camera around. I did a whole lot of experiments and figured out how it could work.
Even if I wasn't as, shall we say, skeptical as I am now, I think if you showed me me that even like 10 years ago, I probably would have said, yeah, that's just a camera blur, I think. Like, I don't know if that's, like.
Right. That one's pretty obvious, I would think.
But I guess if you're looking for that, you might have some confirmation bias in kind of what you're looking for, right?
Well, I think the funny thing is it's supposed to be the fog is the paranormal thing, but the blur is actually the fog, and then they said, oh no, it's got, it's clear in the background, so it can't be that.
Yeah,
so they're disclaiming their own thing.
So we got some, I want to get to, we have some EVPs that we want to listen to next. But before we get to that, I want to ask a quick question. And callers, please, we want to talk about ghost stuff tonight if we can. Of course, this is Truth Wanted. We'll talk about all kinds of things. But this is a chance to ask Bridget, a real-life paranormal investigator, what it was like to be a paranormal investigator. So I hope you guys will call in about that. We have some open lines for that particular purpose. But I want to know real quick before we get into this, what's the the methodology that's being applied here as an investigator? Because I know, like, from what you described to me even before the show, you guys took this pretty seriously. This wasn't there was some sort of method to how you were going about things. So what was that like, on average? What's a typical night for a paranormal investigator look like?
Sitting in the dark for several hours with your friends.
Yeah.
No, we would go into, like, if we went into a typical home, it was usually like a 3 or 4 hour investigation. We would have a team leader that would break us up into teams, and we would take our equipment and go, usually like a couple people on each floor in different rooms or whatever. And they actually very much tried to be scientific, not really. But there was the appearance of that, I guess, because there was a lot of different kinds of equipment and everything, and everybody had to do a report, had to go back and review evidence. And the better evidence was when, Susie over here would have a psychic impression of a little girl, and then somebody else gets a picture of an orb at the same exact time. So when you put the things together, that was good.
You used this earlier with me, and I didn't ask you exactly what you meant. What do you mean by psychic impression? What does that mean?
I don't know. I never had one.
Okay.
I was described as being as psychic as a rock. But yeah, people would, I don't know. Do you ever walk into a creepy house and you just feel like, oh, there's something weird? Like you just get this.
Oh, okay. So literally just a feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of, I'm in an investigation one time and I look out the window and there's this really big, cool looking oak tree. And I could see, like, in my head, I could imagine a little girl swinging on a swing under the tree. So that was a psychic impression. It wasn't. It was just a cool tree that a kid would have fun swinging under,
Yeah, but you imagined a scenario and maybe you thought, oh, this couldn't have come from me, but this was something else.
Right. And most of the people in the group felt that was a psychic impression. It was something coming from elsewhere, from spirits, from the energy, who knows.
And so they documented that. They wrote that down. They were like, this is important. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So like I said, we got some other stuff that we want to look at here. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some EVPs. Now, Bridget, what does EVP stand for?
It's an electronic voice phenomenon.
Okay.
And it's basically when you find something in a recording that wasn't there, it's,
Yeah, this is like if you ever watch Ghost Hunters on True TV and stuff like this is the bread and butter right here. They got these every episode. There's some sort of recording that they're looking at. So we're gonna play a demo EVP first to get you guys, for maybe you guys who aren't familiar, to see what these kind of typically sound like. And we're gonna play this right now as soon as Greg gets on the screen. Here we go. So it's repeating here. It's going to repeat one more time. So the audio might not be boosted enough for you to hear it, but we had a phrase on the screen there that I couldn't hear at all.
I couldn't hear it either, but I was never very good at hearing EVPs. So
yeah, and that's just our demo one. That's not even the one that we have, but we actually have some ones. We'll move on to the real ones, quote unquote. that you captured for us, and let's take a look at that, and we'll see what you interpreted at the time versus what we're thinking about now, right? So let's go ahead and let's get that next one rolling. See if we can hear that one. Okay. One more time here. Okay, so folks, if you haven't caught on, we want you guys to write down in the comments if you're watching this live, because we want to see what other people have to say about it. But Bridget, what's the context of this particular recording? That
was actually something that I got early on. One of my, maybe not my first investigation, probably my first 10 or 12. And I don't know what it is. The recording, now I don't hear it. It's funny because when I play it at home, I can hear it. But there's a whisper. Should I say what it says, or should we wait and see what?
Let's maybe get some time. Maybe some if some helpful mods can point out some great suggestions and send it to me in the chat here. I'd love to hear it. But let's go ahead and see what was the real thing. Let's go with that.
Well, I don't really know what the real thing was.
Okay.
But I know what I thought it said.
Okay, what did you think it said?
It whispered, "Here we go."
Here we go. Okay, yeah. I didn't get that from here. I didn't get anything from this one. Yeah, and like it is kind of interesting because this is a pretty common phenomenon of, we were talking about apophenia, this idea of getting, random signals and interpreting it in our heads. And the TV shows that I watch with this, they're very good about it because they will put the words on screen for you to kind of follow along with.
Yeah, there's a reason they do that.
Yeah, because it kind of puts that idea in your head. It's similar to like if you listen to like Beatles songs backwards and people play the lyrics to them, that there's something there. But this is kind of a case of that, right?
Well, and this particular one, I am a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, so Here We Go is a Steeler thing. So it's very possible that it's my own head.
That was, or maybe the ghost was just a big Steelers fan too.
That's true. It could be.
That could be a thing. I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see what you guys have to say about it in the comments on this particular video. But let's see. We got another one here as well that we're going to play for you. So let's get that second EVP rolling if we can, please.
This is, I think, hello? This is Quincy House, though.
Okay, so I'm going to play two more times.
This is, I think, hello?
And it's just that other voice.
This is, I think, hello? This is Quincy House, though.
Okay, so we got like two different voices we're hearing in there, but one of those is yours, right?
It actually, there was a girl talking to me. It was her talking to me, and then you hear this other very sing-songy voice. Shall I talk about it, or should we wait and see what people say?
Well, so let's talk about what was the story behind getting this one? Because this was kind of interesting. So tell me that.
We were in an investigation in Cape May, in New Jersey, where I am, and it was kind of a historic place, a neat building, and we had just come back from break, and this girl, one of the team members, was telling me about the history of the place, and she's very psychic. Sorry, I'm going to do this a lot. And so she was telling me about how these spirits were back and how she could see them. And I was kind of listening to her. But then I heard some people down the hallway coming up. So when I listened back to this part of the recording, I heard, as you all heard, that hello. And it was clearly me saying hello to the people that were coming up the steps. But at the time, I had no idea. I was convinced this was an EVP. I didn't remember saying hello. So I thought,
so you literally thought, this is a ghost saying hello, not thinking it was actually your voice.
And and it wasn't until, I don't know, probably a few months ago, I was digging through and I heard that and I'm like, oh my God, that is totally me.
But that, like,
It's embarrassing.
But it makes sense though if it's like, if you're up all night, you're sleep deprived, you probably don't remember everything that's going on, and then you're looking at this later and you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And unless you're keeping copious notes on everything, which if you're in the dark, it's probably gonna be hard to do, right? Like you probably just forget the context. Yeah.
And the girl that was talking to me, like I probably wasn't listening to her because she was one of those people that was very psychic and was always talking about stuff that I ignored.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
I really like the phrase "psychic as a rock." I might steal
me.
that. I might.
You can have that. I'm keeping apophenia.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, you can keep that too. But a psychic as a rock, I think, is going to be a thing I'm going to start saying. I really like that phrase. But anyway, yeah, like so. These are some examples of some EVPs. We only had those two for you, plus that demo one. But like this is pretty common. I imagine most of the listeners of this show have probably seen stuff like this before. And the explanations, like we kind of talked about, are pretty basic a lot of times. Now, sometimes I don't know, like when you see it on TV, the problem is with reality television, it could literally be anything. It could be the producer putting something in there. There's no way to verify any of that kind of stuff. And knowing those shows, I mean, there's already been evidence of several, and I couldn't tell you the particulars, but there's been stories that have appeared over the years of people that were supposed to stay at a haunted house one night were actually found at a hotel and some other nights and stuff. So, there's definitely some entertainment that's getting pulled out of this rather than.
Sure. There's so many different ways that people can investigate and different things that are,
Yeah, but it's important because you were part of a very serious group.
We took ourselves very seriously.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how common these groups actually are. I think because I was also telling a story about how a coworker that I used to work with was part of one, but I didn't know until 6 months of working with her, I think it was, that she told me, because this isn't something that a lot of people are open to share. But it's kind of like, oh, you probably know an atheist, they just never told you. It's a similar thing, except there's more ghost investigators out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting phenomenon for sure. But we have one more little piece of media that we want to show you guys, and then we're going to get to your calls. So if you haven't called in yet, feel free to get on the line. But we have a video that we're going to look at and kind of give our commentary on. It's about a minute long, so check it out. We're going to play this in just a second.
Okay. Should I talk about it a little bit?
Yes. Please explain what's happening here.
Okay. That piece of equipment in the middle, I forget what it's called, but it's supposed to be a shadow detector.
Okay.
And I had asked the person, because it was a new piece of equipment, if the IR illuminator, if it would react to that. And I was told it didn't. But if you watch, do you hear that? It goes.
Yeah. So you've got that device, and it's supposed to be beeping whenever there's spirit present, right? But
it's supposed to detect shadows. I don't know if that's a spirit or not. But you can see I'm playing with it. I have the camera and I'm moving that light. And as I move the light, I'm like playing the instrument there. It's definitely reacting to the light.
Right. So I'm going to be quiet here so people can hear that. There it is. Yep. So it goes really loud when you point at a particular object in the room there, and then it goes in and out as you're moving it across the room. But yeah, it seems to me like it's just something about whatever you're pointing at is giving off a particular signal to the device that's making it go off. It's not. It doesn't. It seems like a pretty naturalistic explanation for what's happening.
And the thing is, it was a 7-minute long video that I sent. For 7 minutes, I'm sitting there moving this light back and forth and and watching this thing go off. And I'm trying to figure out, because she had told me, no, it won't respond to that. But it obviously was. So it took me a while, and I'm figuring, you can hear at the end, I'm like kind of saying, oh, but I think it does, because look, and I'm showing her how it was working. And yeah, it was one of those things. It was me figuring stuff out.
Yeah. I'm noticing a theme here with some of the stuff. It's like, it's almost like you want to believe with a lot of these.
Absolutely. You think about the other people that were in there. That was a public event, and there were probably 20 people in that room. They all thought that was a ghost, and it was me.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like you can trick yourself into all this stuff. And we were talking
Absolutely.
about just the commonality that you can find with this and typical religious experiences. I remember
Mhm.
as a Christian myself, I would say, oh, like, this good thing happened to me today. And I know, oh, it's because maybe I did something nice for somebody yesterday. And maybe this is God rewarding me or something. I'm just like confirming my own kind of biases there
Yep.
without even questioning whether or not there's a correlation there. I just kind of felt like it was right in the moment.
Yep.
And it seems like for a group of people that are supposed to be skeptical, supposed to be investigating this phenomenon, you're kind of figuring out evidence for confirming what you already believe anyway, too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody in that group believed
Hmm.
100%. And they, not only this, they believed a whole lot of other things, find a feather. Oh, well, my dead mother sent me like it's a sign of something, like everything was a sign. I was
Mm.
talking earlier about, Mercury in retrograde.
Right.
That was a thing. The computer's not working. Oh, well, it's Mercury.
Right. And you said this before the show. You said, oh, sometimes electronics would work or wouldn't work. And we'd say that's Mercury in retrograde. And I have never unironically heard that phrase said. I've always heard that ironically. Somebody saying, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. But you're saying it as like, oh, no, this is just the fact of life. Mercury is in retrograde. So
Yeah.
our equipment's going to be failing.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that was other people in the group, not me. That was
Not
one of the
you.
things I never believed. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
But a lot of them did. Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, it seems like there's a kind of, from what you describe, a syncretism of different beliefs in kind of the group you were part of, at least. It doesn't seem like there was an organized kind of understanding of what exactly you were looking at. It seems like it could be different things at different times.
Yeah.
Right?
And we, our scientific, I guess, approach, or at least appearance of, I literally went through 3 months of training where it was a couple nights a week sitting for hours going through. We had to take a test, and it was like a test in the dark in the attic. Like this, it was like cult, like a little, like, some tests type of thing.
Yeah.
We voted people off the island one time because, just to get the unpopular people off. Oh yeah, it was there was some crazy
stuff. Okay, well, that's it.
I know there's so many levels. I'm sorry, Dan.
I'm sure there's a lot of levels here, but that's why we got these callers here that want to talk to you and ask their questions as well. So I want to go ahead and get to that. But before we get to the callers tonight, we have to thank our patron of the week. That's right, folks. Every single week, we thank a special person who donates to this show on Patreon. And this week's patron is Tracy R. Thank you so much, Tracy, for just recently donating on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/truthwanted. If you're interested, all of the money for that goes towards supporting this show and getting stuff like equipment and just keeping the lights on at the ACA, even though we're not in the building right now. There's a lot of costs go into the productions of this stuff, and every little bit helps. So thank you guys for deciding to donate to that. Really appreciate it. And now I think it's time we get to some calls. You ready, Bridget?
Sure.
Cool. Okay, so this question is one I wanted to ask you anyway, but it seems like Carpe Diem has beat me to the punch. Carpe Diem calling in from Colorado. What's going on?
Hey, so I just have actually a pretty quick question. So, why spend your life chasing something that you don't believe in?
Well, for me personally, I was doing that. I did believe, or I wanted to believe. I always thought ghosts were possible. I think at the time I would have said, "Oh, I'm a skeptic," but I really kind of believed, but I don't do it anymore. So
there you go.
So you're saying at the time you did believe? I'm confused.
Yes, at the time when I was a part of the paranormal group, I did believe.
Would you say you did believe, or would you say you wanted to believe?
Ooh.
I would say I did, but it was more like I believe. I would have told you at that time that I believe ghosts were possible. Like I have this piece of evidence, for instance. I don't know that it was a ghost, but I don't know that it wasn't a ghost. So I was very open to it. So I believed in that sense.
So you were open to it in the same way as those guys that hunt for the Bigfoot and want to find him. So you just really, I'm out there to find you the evidence you're looking for. You're skeptic, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess there were people in the group that did Bigfoot. Also, I always thought it was kind of silly, but I was like, hey, whatever.
I never thought about that, but I guess those circles would kind of intersect at some point, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
So at the time, I guess this is my last question, and then you guys can go to somebody else. I like the conversation you had when I could keep talking. But at the time, what did you find convincing about it that you might even think that it's worth entertaining it at that level? Like what convinced you that you should be spending time doing that?
Right, just to stay around. Well, I think, yeah, I gotcha. I think I stayed more because of the group of people. There was a group of people there that really cared about people, and they wanted to help. They were really trying to help people that were like afraid of, ghosts or paranormal things. And I was good at it. And that was something I was missing in my life. It was good to feel needed. And I think that was probably it for me, more than the ghosts itself.
Yeah. I could see how that would be difficult. Like how many people out there, going back to Christianity, right, would probably not believe or pretend to believe or participate in the rituals of Christianity as much if they didn't have their church group. Like that's a huge part of people's social lives, and we forget how much that plays into the psychology of belief. And that's always going to be a thing. Like if for some reason I got convinced of some sort of religious phenomenon tomorrow, I'm a part of the atheist community of Austin now. I have been for a couple of years. That is going to be a bias that I have that's going to prevent me from fully committing to that if I sincerely believed it. Because look, I've developed relationships here too. I have friends here, and boy, if I said I was religious again, there people around here would want to talk to me about it, right? So, there's definitely a pressure there that we have to sometimes consider. When we talk about this stuff, that's not always going to be completely rational, because we're not always, rational human beings. So, yeah. But Carpe, I appreciate you calling in. I think that was a good question to talk about, because, beliefs aren't always a set of logical propositions that you agree or disagree with. There is a complex social phenomenon happening here, and it sounds like that's what was going on with your beliefs as well, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. We're talking about ghosts tonight, folks. I'm here with Bridget, who is a former paranormal investigator. I'm so excited that you're here and we get to talk about it. But now we're going to go to another call. We're going to talk to Will, who's calling in from Alabama. Will, what is going on?
I was just wanting to ask, what was her opinion on places that are believed to be haunted that actually have a story, explanation for a spirit, and have had physical assaults that are documented?
That's a good question. Bridget, do you have any insight on that?
Well, I think the places, it depends on the place, but in my experience, the places that were considered haunted, I mean, there's stories everywhere. I mean, everybody's got some ghost story. They have an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or somebody that has seen a ghost or knows a ghost. And a lot of the historical places, they use that to get people to come in. They use it to, they rent out their buildings to ghost hunters. And the claims, I mean, you'd have to look at each individual claim, but in my experience, it all comes down to just a personal claim. And I don't know what's true and what's not as far as that goes.
Yeah, I've of course, my family's from New Orleans, and so there's a lot of these kind of haunted tours and stuff. And one of the things that is brought up in these tours is, this person was here and they have scars, they have bruises from that they didn't have before that they got from that night. But, that's one of those things where, okay, that's still an incident in at least in 2021. Some of these stories, they're before now.
Right.
But, like, we have so many cameras now. We have so many things that we can show a before and after for. And sometimes, I mean, I've gotten injuries before that I don't know how I've gotten. I don't know about you, but
All the time. Yep.
yeah,
Where'd that come from? What'd they
yeah,
do? Yeah.
I've had bruises on my shoulder or other places where maybe if I thought about it, I figure it out. But like that happens too. And in moments like this, again, where we're looking to confirm our beliefs or what we already think we suspect to be true, that could just be another thing happening there. So yeah, even if somebody came up to me and said, "Look, I got these physical bruises when I was at this haunted house," that's not going to be enough for me, dog. I'd have to see more than that, right?
Right.
But what do you think about that, Will?
Like, I think with like bruises and stuff, yeah, because I've gotten bruises before and never realized it and not even known it. But
yeah,
like the place that I use, it is like she said, it's they do profit off of this, but it's a iron mill, and there's been 2 incidents where people have had 2nd-degree burns spontaneously at this mill that doesn't even work anymore.
So is this visitors reporting 2nd-degree burns, or is this like, is this the owners telling stories about visitors telling 2nd-degree burns? Like, where are these reports coming from?
The first report happened to a former worker that was taking a last look at the mill the day it closed. And he claimed to have came across a figure of a man that looked like a half man, half demon, and it looked very disfigured.
Okay.
And it's believed, and where it touched him, it burned him. And then the other was a worker that worked at the mill as a museum worker, and he came across a dark figure and received burns up and down his body.
And what's the name of this place, Will?
Floss Furnace.
Floss Furnace?
Yes.
Floss Furnace. Okay. And this is in Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just giving it out there. So anybody that has any particular insight on this particular location, maybe in the comments, if they want to add in. But personally, I go back to thinking about, and I want to hear your response to this too, Bridget, but I go back to thinking about these haunted tours. I hear when I was in New Orleans, they got all kinds of places, and you go to these hotels, and again, they tell these stories about employees that have seen some things and visitors that have seen some things. And at the end of the day, it's just stories. I don't know if there were, even if there were pictures of these burns, unless we have a clear before and after, I mean, there is just no way to really verify this in any way. And a more meaningful way to do it would be to have, any kind of video of this event or just anything. I mean, it's a story being told, especially at a place like this where there's a motive for a story to be told like that, right? Because they want to get visitors in, they want to generate stuff. It's going to be suspect. It's going to be hard for us to really evaluate one way or the other what's going on there. But any thoughts, Bridget?
Well, my question will be, when did this supposedly happen? This former employee, like how long ago was that?
The former employee happened in the 70s when the mill closed, and the one that worked at it when it was a museum happened around, I think, like 2006.
Okay, so is it possible that the guy in 2006 had heard the story of what had happened in the 70s?
I mean, yeah, he would have known about it because it was a story that was told, because it was just the event was just, it's part of the history of the mill.
Yeah.
So I got the link to this place now. It's called Sloss. I was saying Floss, but it's the Sloss Furnaces historical landmark. And I'm looking at the website here. I don't see any stories off the top here about any haunted encounter. So I can't look at this firsthand, but maybe again, this might be something to look at in the comments for folks who want to look at cases on this. Yeah.
Yeah, if they rent it out to paranormal groups and stuff, there's stories that are probably going around in the town, and they're just local things. And they probably, like you said, if they're profiting from it, they're going to be putting it out there, So
they've had
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, they've had 2 TV shows like that do paranormal hunts go there. They've had a news crew go there to do an investigation of their own there, but it all goes back to one story that happened with a ghost. They call him Slag.
See, he even has a name.
Yeah,
He
that's
has
true.
a name because it was a nickname that I believe might have been given to him when he worked there, but he was a foreman that was not
hold
very
on.
popular among the workers.
So I got some links here. So thank you, crew, for pulling up some links about the story that we have here. So it looks like Slag is an urban legend that was told here in the 1900s. James Slag Wormwood was a foreman of the graveyard shift. Okay, and they have this story here. There was some sort of a couple of strange incidents that happened, and then there were some stories about some hauntings. And some people seeing, here it is, half man, half demon, just like you were talking about. Upon examination by Dr. Jack Barlow, Blumenthal was found covered with intense burns. He died before ever returning to Sloss. I'm not seeing any outside links to this or any other kinds of outside confirmation. What I'm seeing on the site here, at least, is just the story. But I also see on the same website a different link: the Furnace Tour, face to face with Slag. Fright Furnace has created a terrifying experience that takes you into the deepest, darkest parts of Sloss Furnace. And it looks like they have a 3D maze complete with killer clowns and a spinning vortex that brings grown men to their knees, weeping with fear. So whatever the story is with this Slag person, they've obviously capitalized off this and made some sort of, amusement park out of it, which is fun. I mean, to me, that's going to be, if this was a real story that people were really concerned about and had thoughts and concerns about the livelihood and well-being of the family members that died, and this was all true, something tells me they would. I don't know. America's a messed up place. Maybe they would make an amusement park out of it, but I don't know. Sounds to me like maybe this is a story that they might hype up a little bit to, make some money off of, right?
Yeah. I think October they do a haunted house there.
Yeah. A lot of places do that. I was going to say, if you look at what's more likely, is there really a ghost named Slag, that demon haunting, whatever, that touches people and burns them? Or is it more likely that it's just a story that's been passed down and now people are profiting from it?
I mean, I know like the origins is real. It was a foreman that really did fall into a furnace.
I am seeing some names here. I got the crew looking at this stuff. They can't find any outside confirmation of the names mentioned in this story. From what we see, we can only find what's published here on the website. And that's not to say that those records don't exist. Not every record is going to be on the internet, right? But from what we're seeing right here, I'm not really buying it too much, Will. I got to say, it seems like it's a story that this group makes to kind of hype up, to scare people, to get to sell tickets. I mean, it's sad, it's cynical, but it's a lot more common than what people think. It really is.
Yeah, it is sad that where places where there could have been actual accidents, they hype up stuff like that for profit.
Yeah. I think that's what we're looking at here. Again, obviously, I'm just talking to you over the phone, and I'm looking at some web links, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but I've not seen anything super credible so far. I'd have to see something a bit more, but hopefully we've given you some assuage some of your concerns about what we're looking at here. It's easy to buy into the hype of this stuff, especially when you think that there are certain fundamental facts about these cases. That's what they really try to sell you on. It's like, well, we know that this person was here, we know that there was these injuries, but those facts may not even be true. And even then, there's probably a lot more plausible explanations than what you might be primed for. But if you're already primed to think, oh yeah, this is what's going on, we can pull the strings and see this has to be a haunting, then you're going to think it's a haunting, and that's going to be your first inclination. But anyway, I think that's all the time we got for this particular call. Will, thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Will. Good luck.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Watch out for Slag.
Watch out for Slag. Yeah, this website's really interesting. Again, I'm looking at the story here, and it's just a web page with a story on it. There's no newspaper reports from the time of this person's death. There's no newspaper reports of any of the sightings that they're talking about, any of the instances with the ghosts and stuff. And again, according to the crew here, they were Googling some of the names mentioned in this story, and they can't find that any of these people were real either. So it's probably a story that was kind of made up for a park, you know?
Yep, that happens.
Yeah.
Especially around Halloween, it seems.
Right. And again, this is a place that has a haunted house tour thing. So, you know, that's what they're going to do. Yeah, it's hard because you really don't think people can just be that base and that crude and that whatever, but there's so many people. Oh my gosh, so many people. If you go to New Orleans in particular, I'll say this much too. Like, you go to any vendor on the street corners and stuff, they'll say, oh yeah, we got some real authentic voodoo stuff for you here that's like way overpriced and stuff. It's not, man. It's just for tourists.
Yep.
Yeah. But you had something you were going to say real quick. I think.
Nothing. It's gone. Sorry.
Okay. No, we're all good. Let's go ahead and talk to another caller here. Then we want to talk to Omniskeptic, who's calling in from Canada. Omniskeptic, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going pretty good. Talking about ghosts. So what's going on?
Well, I was just listening to Bridget earlier talk about having this thing that there's some kind of device, I don't remember what it was, measure something in the room, and despite it being told to presumably not work in that situation. And it got me thinking about the types of contradicting beliefs that both the paranormal investigators might have amongst themselves, so like they might disagree with each other, as well as a disagreement between the investigators and the people that they're sort of like being contracted by to go in and investigate, right? Like the people that live in the house or own the property or whatever. And so I was wondering, when you would go in to investigate, would you guys all collaborate until you came up with like one explanation and then that would be the official explanation everybody went with? Or would you just see some activity and everybody's sort of left to their own devices to come up with why?
Great question.
Okay. It depends. If we were going into a private home and somebody was having a situation and they were, afraid of something going on in their house, whatever, we would be very scientific. We wouldn't share information. We would do our own investigations individually. We would go home, we would review everything, and then all that information was sent separately to the team leader, who would then put it all together and then write up a report. And the conclusion would be based on what we felt was good evidence. And that's what was included in the report. So we tried we didn't sit around a table and decide what happened. There was definitely a procedure in place for that. And as far as disagreements, there was a thing that you reminded me of a question that I had at some point along the way. I had been told that residual hauntings are hauntings where it just kind of replays, so they're not intelligent, they're not able to interact with people, they just, somebody comes down the steps every day at 3:00, that type of thing, it's like ingrained in history. But then EVPs were supposed to be implanted onto the audio tape somehow using their energy. And it was supposed to be like they were doing it. So in that case, you could never get a recording of a residual haunting because they didn't have any intelligence. But there were always recordings of residual hauntings. So that never made sense to me. And I never did get an explanation for that. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Omni, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's just like, I'm trying to imagine different scenarios where like some kind of conflict arises. Like, what would happen if the person invited you in and wanted you to take a look, but they had like some like religious understanding of what was going on? So instead of like this sort of paranormal kind of demon, they're thinking, oh, it's a Christian demon or something. Like,
right?
Would you tell them that's not how the spirits work, or would you sort of try to explain it within their framework, or like how do differences in opinion of explanation like work themselves out?
Well, it would depend on the case. But if we went into somewhere to a house and they had like a certain religious belief, we would go by what they believed as much as possible. We didn't necessarily have people from all religions in the group. I would say that most people were not any specific denomination. I would say they were mostly Christian light, kind of more spiritual, if that makes sense. But we always tried to respect whatever religion the client would have. And if the client already had an explanation, they probably wouldn't be calling us, because the people that called us wanted an explanation. They didn't know what was going on. So there's not usually a conflict with the client.
And also, for people who are probably wondering as well, this was all a volunteer effort.
Absolutely.
This wasn't anything that you weren't profiting off of this in any way, as far as from what you told me, at least.
That's correct.
And this was just a group of people who were really interested in trying to help people with their, paranormal problem. But I think it's so funny that you talk about this idea of, well, we wanted to respect the religious beliefs of the people that are there, because it's like, if this is a real scientific explanation, wouldn't there just be like one explanation, like, that's a demon that you're seeing in there? Oh yeah, no, this is like Beelzebub. Okay, this is specific. But instead it's kind of like, well, maybe this is something else. This could be, maybe a little more wringing of the hands there, right?
Yeah, well, if the people with discernment in the group decided that it was demons, then we always went Catholic.
Yeah,
just because they're, I don't know, because we did.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I guess I do know this. You did mention before that there were some exorcisms you did too. It wasn't all just investigating at a house overnight, right? So
yeah.
How I know we got Omni on the phone still, but I am curious, what does that look like? How do you explain? Did they come from the Bob Larson school of exorcisms here? Like, did you have a specialist? Did you get a young priest and an old priest? Like, what's
no, there was one person in the team that was a priest. I forget the exact title he had, and there were some other spiritual people that would help, and we would go through. It was usually a home exorcism, not necessarily a person, although we did do blessings on people as well. But we would walk through and do prayers and incense, and I don't know, you do different herbs for different demons. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes it never worked. But the cool thing is, I never believed in demons, so I was really good for those cases because they never affected me.
You'd think that you'd want your whole team to be on the same page about the demon thing.
Yeah, well, it was cool. I was the safety net because the demons didn't affect me because I didn't believe in them. So if something went bad, I could pull everybody out.
Funny how that works when you don't believe in demons, and the demons
right? Looking back, it makes so much sense.
That's so funny. Oh wow! But I mean, I guess that I could see how. Oh, you have a history of not being affected by demons. Let's throw Bridget in there. Let's see what happens.
I'm sure. Why not?
Yeah. Well, Omni, did you have any other comments or questions here before we wrap up this call?
Just a final one, almost a side note, but Bridget, do you miss it? We have a sort of, many people find an allure to, the mystical and the nebulous and like having the mystery. And so I was just wondering, do you miss that sort of atmosphere?
You know what? I miss the people. I miss the camaraderie with that group of people, but I don't miss the woo at all. I do yoga now, and I have to ignore all that because I just like to stretch. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear
demonic,
That's shh. But yeah, I miss the group. It was a very close knit group of people, and that I miss. But as far as the ghost hunting, no, it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of sitting around in the dark, being bored. Yeah, that I could do without that. Although I think it would be fun now to go and do an investigation through my eyes now. You know,
I
it would be fun.
that is a life goal that I have now. I would like to be a part of a quote unquote real investigation.
Well, we'll have to do that, Dan. We'll have to set that up somehow.
Hey, look, I'm 100% down to go on a real ghost trip. I will go Zach Baggins so fast. Don't
do that. Don't ever go Zach Baggins.
I don't know. There's something about that narrative of just being the lone investigator trying to figure out the truth of this ghost situation. Just I don't know, just makes me happy. But
you're gonna get so bored so quick.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? I guess you are just actually sitting in a house for like 8 hours at night. Yeah. Well, Omni, thanks so much for the questions.
Thanks for the questions. That was good.
Great questions, and stuff that I was curious about too. So I'm glad we talked about that. Next, we're going to talk to Zenith, who is calling in from Australia. Zenith, what's going on? Hello, Zenith. You're live on Truth Wanted. Zenith, there we go. Hey, Zenith, how's it going? Going all right.
Yeah. I just like to say that all these people that are talking about spirits and ghosts and all that sort of stuff, well, I'd like to say, like, I've had plenty of... Yes, Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, you're cutting out. You're cutting out in and out. If you could get out of a place where you got a good connection, so we can hear you. But you said all these people that have these spirit stories and stuff, and then you cut out from there.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So let's keep going, and I think we can work with it.
Okay. A few years ago, I was in a car accident.
Okay. Uh-oh. Zenith, if you're still talking to us, we can't hear you. I'm going to put you back in the queue so that if you have any issues, you can work it out with the crew. Of course, we want to talk to you, but if we have connection issues, it's just it can't happen. Can't talk to you about it, unfortunately. So for right now, we're going to switch to a different caller, and then we'll see if we can get back to you in a second. Next, we're going to talk to, correct me if it's wrong, is it Marcia calling in from Arizona?
Marcia.
Marcia. Hey, Marcia, how's it going?
Oh, good.
Cool. Well, what can we help you with today?
Well, I heard you talking about ghosts.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, I went to a very fundamentalist Christian church. I'm an atheist now.
Okay.
But I went to a very fundamentalist Christian church. And when I was in third grade, our third grade Sunday school teacher read us this book, something like Escape from Witchcraft. And it was full of demons and ghosts and just these terrifying things for third graders. We were all mortified. And our church was telling us these things are true. And, if you're not right with God, these ghosts and these demons are going to get you.
Oh my God, that is awful. You were in third grade and they were telling you this?
Third grade, yeah.
Oh my God, that is just, I'm sorry, that's child abuse. That is child abuse. Yeah. If you're telling people, if you're telling kids, hey, this is a boogeyman that's real and is going to hurt you unless you do certain things, I mean, that's just, it's so wrong. That is so wrong. And I understand, like, this teacher probably believed it on some level, right? Otherwise, why would they bring it up in the classroom? But sometimes I've met other teachers.
Sure, they totally believed it. And yeah, it was Sunday school. I mean, it was just super fundamentalist, Church of God. I don't know if you know what the Church of God is.
Yes, I'm aware of Church of God, and it doesn't surprise me that this story is coming from a Church of God. To be honest with you, but yeah, like it. I'm lucky in that my Christian upbringing, demons wasn't really a thing that ever came up. But if it was, it would probably scare the hell out of me. I mean, I was already kind of freaked out about ghosts as a kid, but that was because I was watching like True TV and all these ghost shows and stuff on there, right? Like if a Christian leader, somebody who was supposed to inform me about what my faith means and what the religion that I supposedly was a believer in, I was a believer in, what's supposed to be a part of that faith, rather, and saying like, oh yeah, this is in the cosmology, there's demons and they're going to get you. I don't know what that would do to me in my psyche, but it would change me. Like, I would be freaked out. I would have a different view of the world. So I'm glad that you've escaped that now.
When I was a kid, and for years after being at that church, I couldn't sleep with a door open because I was terrified I was going to see like a burning demon or ghosts coming toward me. Trying to remember some of the other things. And, since I left Christianity, I have gotten over like all of this except one weird thing that has just lingered. And I know it's completely ridiculous, but if I am in a dark room, I cannot look into a mirror more than a few seconds.
Yeah.
And I know it's silly. It's just ridiculous. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in any of that. But I still can't do that. And it just seems so ridiculous to me.
Yep.
But that is a common thing, though. Like when I was a kid, it was the Bloody Mary thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right? It's the you go in the mirror in the dark, and if you say Bloody Mary 3 times, supposedly Bloody Mary appears in the mirror and tries to kill you. I remember trying to do this in my bathroom, and of course, I think I was too scared to even do it. It's only because, like we're used to seeing ourselves in the mirror and stuff, and when it's dark and you can't see it, and you just have like a figure there, it kind of looks like somebody else, and you may not recognize yourself right away. And so I think that's kind of the explanation I've heard as to why this particular phenomenon is a thing, because it seems to be a common thing. People get scared in front of mirrors. Why are mirrors in particular so freaky? And that makes sense. Yeah.
It just seems so crazy to me, just so ridiculous to me, because I'm almost 60 years old. This was in 3rd grade, and it's just the strangest thing. And I know it all comes from that Sunday school teacher, that church, being told those things. Just, oh.
You know what, Marcia? Up until very recently, and probably still recently, whenever I heard like a loud train noise or any like really loud noise outside, I thought the second coming was here, because there's supposed to be, the trumpet call, right? When everything kind of goes to shit, biblically speaking. And it was because I read the Left Behind books when I was a kid. In my elementary school class, they had a little library for the kids to read stuff, and the Left Behind books were there. And I didn't know what these books were, and I read them, and that's when I figured out about the sort of end times apocalypse of Christianity. And that freaked me out. I remember coming home, I was like a latchkey kid, older, and I'd come home and I'd see clothes laid out on the couch or chair. And I thought, oh my God, my parents were here, but they were taken up in the rapture. Like that was a thing that affected me for a long time, a super long time. But you know what? Like that, there is nothing to be ashamed of, because it was because of the abuse that you and I experienced with that. That is just, it's awful. That is awful, because that is it's a trauma that was inflicted on us. That because what's a better way to explain it if we're still experiencing that as adults, right? It's absurd.
Right.
And it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a trauma. It was a huge trauma to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not fair, because we're kids, we're defenseless, and we don't know any better. We don't know how the world works, and these adults are telling us different things. And I cannot forgive somebody that does that to a kid, even if they sincerely believe it. Guess what? I guarantee, Marcia, your entire life, you never saw any witches, did you? You never saw any demons, but like that. No, but that fear was still with you, and that's Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. As a kid, I never saw one of them, but I was certain they were lurking around the other side of the door.
Yeah, I'm sure. Bridget, I was talking a lot. Go ahead.
No, all I had to say was I didn't have any of that type of indoctrination growing up. And for you guys to still have those experiences into your adulthood and everything and still have that kind of reaction that you can't control. I had none of it, and I still believed in ghosts. So, I mean, you know, it just goes to show you.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all believe things for... I don't know. It's like almost like we're programmed to believe. We're back to the apophenia again, huh?
It's true. And like this goes back to a reason that was hard for me to leave the belief. For me, like if I was being honest at the end of the day, one of the things holding me back, not the soul thing. I think maybe it's a soul thing for some people, but one thing for me was the fear of hell. It was the fear of consequences for identifying as an atheist, for kind of disavowing my belief. And I've told this story before. The week before I kind of came out as an atheist and talked about that publicly on the internet. I was having a consistent nightmare. This happened to me about 3 times, and I woke up in a sweat where I thought the end of the world was coming and like a bomb was going to go off in some of these dreams. And I had the choice between believing in God so I can go to heaven or just evaporating into nothingness. This is and that I was only having those nightmares not because of some spiritual presence was haunting my brain and trying to convince me to believe in God again, but because I had anxiety that was built up over years and years and years of indoctrination.
Yep, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's awful. And I can be confident of that because people of other religious traditions say the same exact thing. You don't have to be a Christian to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just how you're raised.
Yeah. My heart goes out to you, Marcia. I'm sorry this is still affecting you. But I hope talking about it right now is helping you through it a little bit at least. Because it's just people trying to scare you for no good reason. That's it. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I kind of called because, you know, I wanted to say, you know, to other people, if you're in one of those churches that does those things, this is what you're doing to your children, and you need to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I take no sympathy for people who do this only because, again, even if you sincerely believe it, look, there's demonstrably no consequences other than bad ones that come from this stuff. You know, hey, if there's demons out there, let the kid find the demon. Honestly, let them find it. Let them figure that out. Don't tell them that there's demons. Like if it's a thing, they'll figure it out. You don't have to scare them with nonsense that's not going to, you know, benefit them in any positive way whatsoever. But anyway, Marcia, thanks so much for calling. We're going to go ahead and go to another caller. I hope this was therapeutic for you in some sense. It was for me. I'm glad I got to rant about this for a bit because
thanks,
sucks.
Marcia.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate that this is a thing that still happens.
I know.
Still happens. But it is what it is. So let's go ahead. We're going to try to talk to Zenith again from Australia. We're going to see if the equipment's working there. Zenith, what's going on? Come on, Zenith. I know you're there. Come talk to me. Talk to me, Zenith.
Yes, I'm here.
There we go. Okay, what's going on?
Okay. Well, let's take this to the end result. I was in a car accident.
Okay.
Broke my neck. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had 7 hours under the knife. In fact, I'm here.
We're having some issues again, Zenith. I'm really sorry. I'm not sure if this call is going to work out, man. We keep having some cutouts, and I don't want to have to fight it. So I'm going to put you back in the queue, but I think we're going to have to let the call go for tonight because we just can't. We can't communicate here. So
I'm really curious.
I am curious too. I don't know what the end result of that story was going to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's okay. We have one other caller we're going to get to here. We're going to talk to Keith, who's calling in from Florida. Hey, Keith, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hello, Dan and Bridget. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Just talking about the paranormal.
Yeah. So, like, with these ghost and paranormal experiences, how would you be able to tell a real one from a fake one? I mean, earlier you had the video where you could easily verify that you were affecting the sensor with the IR light, but how would you know if you actually experienced a real paranormal experience? How would you be able to tell it from the, fake stuff?
You wouldn't. I mean,
Very honest answer there, right?
I mean, it's true. I mean, if someone, I think there's a difference between someone who has an experience and there's no way you can't take that experience away from someone. They experience it, they believe it, they feel it. It has an effect on them. But to prove that and verify it and get someone else to believe it, you can't. It's not evidence. It's just a story. And that doesn't. I know that sounds kind of mean, and I don't mean to be mean. It can be a powerful thing to one particular person, but I don't think that you can't verify it. So does that make sense?
So, I mean, there are a lot of people who really do truly, absolutely believe that they have had paranormal experiences. I have family members who are sure that they've been visited by people that I miss and that they miss. I mean, I'm sure we all have those people in our families, I'm sure.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, that it's all that there's no way that they could ever prove it. But you got all these people who are going to take advantage of it. I mean, exorcisms. And, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, recently, a friend of mine, someone I know, her boss passed recently, and she called me one day and told me that, the office door opened like 4 times today, and it was a thing that would happen sometimes. And she's just like, I know it's her. She's here and she's visiting me. And she knows I don't believe in anything. And I told her, I said, you know what? That door opened, you thought of her. That's all that matters. It reminded you of her, and it made you smile and remember her. It doesn't mean she's there. If if there's still value in that, just, you know what I mean?
I mean, and why can't that be enough, right?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
Occasionally I will be sitting around just doing nothing, and I'll remember, oh, hey, I really loved my grandmother's chili. It was a really good chili. And that doesn't have to be her touching me or giving me some experience. That can just be,
well, I almost
have a memory of my grandmother.
Yeah, it's interesting, Keith. I think about it like this. It's like you imagine you grow up in a religious household like I did, or anybody else. I don't particularly know your backstory, right? But and you're told your entire life that this is a thing that's real. The spirits are real, that there's an other world out there, but you have no real experience with that. You have no connective tissue to really justify that belief. And you might be wondering if you'd ever get that. And then if you finally have an instance where that could be the case, you might want to fill that in just because you've heard about this phenomenon so much. You've heard about this stuff that, well, now you can finally confirm this belief that you've invested your whole life into. I mean, hours and hours and hours of church time and stuff like that. I think from that perspective, that's going to make more sense to me, because when I think of my personal experiences, what I had once described as mystical experiences, right? In my religious life, I could now look at that and see, oh, I think this was me trying to justify what I already had believed through, positive experiences. And that makes sense from that perspective. Whereas now I don't have anything I'm trying to prove, I don't have anything that, I'm trying to build a bigger case for. So I'm not really going to look at stuff that way. But if you have a bigger case in mind, if you have a more complex structure of an afterlife and stuff like that, you may be interested in trying to fill the holes. Because I think everybody, if they're being honest, has some holes they're trying to fill, right? Unless you're like we're talking about Bob Larson or something, that supposedly has all these kinds of experiences. Most of us don't on a day to day. I mean, and if we do, they're going to be pretty uncommon. Right? It's not going to be, something all the time. We make mistakes only occasionally, if not, to that kind of level, I guess. I don't know, because I have family too that's like, hey, I think I saw an exorcist happen one time, or I think that this person was possessed by a demon. It's like, I think you saw somebody who had struggled with mental illness, and like that's just going to be a different interpretation of reality. So, yeah, I don't know.
It could be Mercury in retrograde.
Could be Mercury in retrograde.
I keep coming back to that.
Look, if we have some technical problems tonight, I will.
It'll be my fault for bringing it up.
Now I know. Well, I have an explanation for it. So there you go.
What happened to that guy in Australia?
Yes.
Retrograde. Yeah, that's what's going on in Australia.
Somebody's going to look that up or something.
Now we know. And it only affects Australians because Australia is not a real place, just like Mercury in retrograde.
Well, so that explains. I mean, it doesn't exist. So how could he possibly get through on the phone?
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense to be. Now the crew is messaging me. Mercury in retrograde is starting on January 30th. That's not what it's not actually retrograde though. I think we should be clear. It's not what we're seeing. But anyway, that's like astronomy stuff. Keith.
Yep.
That's a great call. Do you have any final comments or final questions before we let you go here?
No, that's all. You guys are awesome. Have a great night.
Cool.
Thanks. You too, Keith.
Yeah, that's all the calls I think we wanted to take tonight, but we do have a couple minutes here. And I guess I was kind of curious more about your story, and not necessarily the details of individuals that you interacted with and stuff, but just like, you spent a good chunk of your life with this group. I mean, at least 4 years. And so I imagine, there is an impact of that from going from being invested to not as invested. Do you have any more to say about that, or anything that you think you could share with people that would be meaningful to that? Because I think that's something that a lot of us experience when it comes to religion in general, right? Yeah. Maybe not with paranormal groups. I don't think most of my listeners have experience with that, but a lot of people who watch this show can resonate with that. So yeah, any comments on that kind of perspective?
Well, yeah, and we've said this a few times too, that the whole idea of apophenia, I think it's really important, because it's not just seeing Jesus in toast or, a confirmation bias. It's making connections, and it can be anywhere. I mean, look at, there's some crazy stuff happening in this country. These people believe some crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that it's really important to understand why our brains do that, and how our brain works, and that sometimes we make connections and not even realize. I think as we were talking before the show, I said, somebody says that they heard, footsteps in the hall.
Yeah.
They've already made that connection because it's footsteps, and it's really subtle, but I think it's really important for people to understand that, because if you understand it, you can kind of recognize it and maybe not fall into like beliefs that can end up being harmful.
Yeah, I think like people might look at an episode like this and say, "Oh gosh, this is so silly. This is just ghost stuff. Whatever. Right. It's only a small group of people that are really invested in this. Who cares? We have bigger issues to worry about." But really, the heart of the issues that we tackled tonight, with how you got into this belief, how this was meaningful to you. I mean, this is applicable for everything. I mean, look, nobody's called in about QAnon tonight. I was prepared to talk about it if people want to talk about it, because I've been wanting to talk about it. But I have guests that are more specific, better for specific topics than others. But like, look, everything that we're seeing in the country right now, not to date this too specifically, with what's been happening in recent weeks and what we've been seeing for years, has been the culmination of what we've both experienced as people, Bridget, of putting science together and putting things together and not using good reason and good evidence to come to the conclusions of our beliefs. And if anybody's going to tell me at this point, oh yeah, this conspiracy stuff, that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Well, you're not paying attention to what's been going on. You really aren't. Like, this is not only a big phenomenon, but it's getting bigger. It's only getting bigger, and it has not shown signs of slowing down. So I want to encourage people to I don't know, take away from this what you would take away from these other kinds of beliefs, and really try to figure out what's going on here. Because it's a complicated thing. Sometimes it's emotional investment. Sometimes it's just bad logical arguments. Sometimes it's apophenia. Sometimes it's something else. But to dismiss it and say, oh, we don't have to look at this, we don't have to examine this because this is just a small subject of people, this doesn't affect me in any way. Bullshit. This affects all of us in major ways. It may not be ghosts, it may not be demons, but it could be conspiracy theories. Yeah. It could be specific political ideas and just all kinds of stuff that really matters.
It's not the belief; it's how you get there, and you need to stop and think about why you believe it.
Yeah. So, Bridget, I am really, really glad you got to be on the show tonight. I've been so excited to talk about this. We got a ghost episode down, folks. I wanted to do a dedicated ghost episode, and here we are. We did it on episode 100. Again, I have to thank everybody so much for being so supportive of this show. I can't believe I've done 100 of these. Well, technically 99, but whatever. Really crazy. I don't want to vamp on it too much because I feel like I did it pretty recently with the last episode of the year, which was just a couple weeks ago. But I am very grateful for everybody who watches this show and continues to invest in this project of Truth Wanted. Like I said, the year's just gotten started, but we've got a lot of great guests that we want you guys to meet. And we're looking forward to some of the just awesome content that we want to continue to put out. I want to give a thanks to Greg, our producer, Greg James, who does a lot of amazing stuff for the atheist community of Austin, and who puts a lot of this stuff together, and everybody that behind the crew that has a million names, some of which everybody who makes the show is really awesome. And looking at that video of me first starting out to now, a lot has changed. I think mostly for the better. And I'm really glad that this show has been such a big part of my life. It means a lot. So thank you to everybody, both crew and watchers of the show, because this show would not be anything without you guys watching it as well. So Bridget, do you have any pluggables that you want to give out for people who want to find you later?
Not really. I think I gave them my Facebook and Twitter. And everybody's frozen. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, no, we can hear you. We got the text there on the screen.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and we're gonna go into the Discord after show in just a second as well. So if you got more questions for Bridget or myself, please go join in the ACA Discord for that. And we'll be there in just a second. Link's going to be in the description. Again, folks, this is Truth Wanted. This is a live call-in show that happens every week at 7 p.m. Central Time. I'm your host, as always, Objectively Dan. There's a couple different ways to reach me. You can find me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan, and you can also email the show. It's truth@atheist-community.org. And if you like this show and you want to support us, well, there's a couple different ways to do it. One, you can join our Facebook group. I'm going out of order here. I'm throwing all the crew off with all the images they're not getting in time, but there's a Facebook group. Again, Bridget posted some of other EVPs as well on the post there, so you should definitely check that out if you haven't already. There's other ways to support the show is through merch. We got a store for that. We got t-shirts, we got masks and hoodies and all kinds of stuff that you can check out there. It's going to be a bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/AEN merch. So you can check that out. It's going to be in the description as well. There's also the YouTube memberships. That's another way you can support the show. We got cool little emojis and stuff that you can post in the chat. And I just think they're neat. And of course, there's patreon.com/truthwanted. That's another way to support the show. And that shows the ACA like, hey, Truth Wanted is a project that is worth investing in at least 100 times over now. So thank you guys for donating to patreon.com. And last but never ever not least, I want to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, spectacular, awesome crew that helps make this show every week. Oh my god, there's a ghost. Just kidding. I think that man, there's a lot going on in this chat here. Plus it's sweeping there's cats, there's hats, there's all kinds of things. And I didn't realize we had ghosts that worked on this show, but I guess that makes.
I think there's a snake.
I think that's the flying spaghetti monster. Is what you're looking at there.
All right.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Thank you, crew. Thank you guys so much for.
Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
Thanks so much for being on. Any final comments or last words before we wrap it up?
Just you're awesome. Hey, congratulations on 100 shows. I'm happy to have been on.
Heck yeah, number 100. You made the shot.
I forgot. I also won a Golden Pico, I have to say. That was so cool.
You did win a Golden Pico award. Yeah, for those of you who hadn't checked it out, we did do a clip show for last year for Christmas Day of some of the best clips of the year, and you got one of the favorite callers, right?
That's pretty cool. It's the first thing I've ever won.
That's not true.
Well, you know.
Well,
I might have won a couple bucks in the lottery here or there, but that's about it.
Well, I'm glad we were able to give you that Golden Pico. And thanks everybody for watching. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.